All right. All right. Welcome to Beginners Academy. We like to help beginners and returning hams get started in amateur or restarted in amateur radio. Also like to introduce some of the many things that you can do in amateur radio. And tonight's topic is why try contest? And we're talking about amateur radio contest. And I'm borrowing slides from Alan Clark, N5PA, who is a contester. And his slide deck was 76 slides long, 76 slides. So I just selectively used a few. It's going to help us out. And to the right is our happy contester. All right. So what is contesting for amateur radio? It's an operating event held over a predefined time period where the goal is to enjoy yourself, which is a very broad definition, which means there are all kinds of contests. So any excuse they can figure to create a contest, they've done it, and there's probably more on the way. And contesting is an operating activity on the air. And there are different kinds of operators. One category of operators are competitors who love to contest and they want to get better and better and perhaps even win, although winning a big contest, even for the folks who are really doing it seriously, is a long shot. Of course, it depends. There are a lot of categories for contests, but anyway, some folks get into it. They're trying to improve their scores. They learn everything they can about propagation and plan a strategy. They figure out how they can stay awake for 48 hours. They're also into station building and selecting their equipment. And of course, they'll use computers and other technology where they can. And then there's another type of operators that are casual, and that's all the rest of us. And in the picture here, you can see the typical casual operator. It's not too worried, but folks, find what interests them in amateur radio. And I guess the point of this presentation is you may or may not really become a serious contester, but you might want to give it a try and see how it goes for you. So for casual contests, of course, you're going to need a radio to get on the air. Many contests are on HF, but not all of them. And when you get on HF in particular, on some weekends, you're just going to run into a contest and you won't have any clue what contest it is. But we'll mention there's a calendar of contests in an upcoming slide. But anyway, you'll need to figure out what contest is going on. It may be taking up the complete band. Check out the rules, at least enough you know what your category is and what the exchange is. We'll talk more about the exchange later. For casual contesting, a log is not required. You can just give other folks points, and you'll probably just tune around to people calling CQ, give them a call, and that's called search and pounce. You could also call CQ if you wanted to. So this is one way to go. Be casual. But if you're inclined, you can use a logger and you can turn in a score. The sponsors of these contests welcome everybody to turn in a score, but it's up to you if you want to go to that extent. And here's our little cartoon here. And even though you may be just a pup, you can still have fun contesting with the big dogs. And so the serious folks are on the right, and on the left is you, but you can stick your toe in and find out what it's all about. Actually, the contesters welcome that because you're more points for them, and they love to make as many points. That's the goal of a contest for most, is to make as many points as they can. All right. There is a third type of operator. It's called a contest hater. And these do exist. Does anybody have a comment here? But not not everybody's interested in contesting. And in fact, some people hate contesting because it seems that the contesters take over the band, or try to. And so their usual group might get impacted by a contest. So particularly on 80 meter sideband, where folks meet every day of the year, they're generally not that interested in contesters. But if you're not interested in contesting on a contest weekend, you can go to the WARC bands. That's the bands like 30 meters, 17 meters, 24 meters. There's an agreement that contests won't be on those bands. So there's a place to escape to. And or some contest weekends, it's just CW, so that won't impact sideband at all. And so forth. So anyway, there's a way to escape if you need to. And I've done that. I say, well, I'm not interested in the contest, so I'm going to go to 17 meters and see who's there. And Frank is on his way in. All right, well, types of contest. Well, there's, well, not hundreds, but maybe 100 different contests. And some of them are sponsored by ARRL here in the United States. Some of them may be sponsored by the RSGB and in the UK, or a South SARL in South Africa. So anybody can come up with a contest. And and in fact, a lot of contests are sponsored by CQ magazine. Some of the biggest contests are sponsored by them. And in fact, there was one this last weekend. So it's wide open. Who wants to sponsor contests? Some are very big events, some are more focused, fewer participants. And this is a little graphic, a contest for all seasons and taste. It's got some representative contest on here. And ARRL Straight Key Night is on New Year's Eve and into New Year's Day. Most of us have heard of ARRL Field Day, which they claim is not a contest, but it's run like a contest. But that's an excellent one to get into because they understand that not everybody's familiar with contests on there. So there's a whole lot of latitude. But it's a lot of fun, and you don't necessarily have to have your own equipment if you visit one of the field day sites. Same thing goes for winter field day. And there are 10-meter contests on one end of the HF band and 160-meter contest on the other. And concurrent with winter field day is a ARRL 160-meter contest that takes up the entirety of 160 meters. But we work our way across this. It wasn't that long ago that the ARRL sweepstakes, it was this fall, and it's a little more complicated than the average contest because it has a pretty complicated exchange, but you can do it after you study up on it. And this IARU HF World Championship is like the Olympics of contesting. And there are teams that go to one particular city or area, and what they strive to do is make the playing field equal, because the playing field in general is not equal. People in different parts of the world, some of them might have an advantage. But to find out who the best operators are, they might take a city like Boston, and all around the city, they'll set up identical towers and tents, and they'll host hams from all over the world, and they'll be on during the championships, but everybody else in the world can participate in that also. So that's pretty special. And so of course it's good for the contesters because they get to meet the folks that they work on the air at the championship. So that's pretty cool. All right, well, we mentioned the word exchange. Well, exchange is a QSO, or a contact for a contest, is between two amateur radio stations, and there's certain information that they must exchange to make a valid contact. And the fact is, there's not just one exchange. Every contest has their own. There's a lot of common ones like name and state or RST and power. But anyway, it's a matter of looking at the rules and seeing what a particular contest. And once you uncover it and hear them using it on the air, it's pretty straightforward after that. But when you hear one on the air, you may not be sure exactly what the exchange is. So you need to check out the rules to help you figure it out. All right. So to help you know what's going on, there are a number of calendars. When I Google contest calendar, I get this first one. And here's a longer name for it, but nevertheless, it covers a whole year of contest, and it will tell you what's coming up and what's going on, whether it's field day or sweepstakes or a QRP contest or whatever.
Listen to this.
They're on the list.
Watch that.
And there are other calendars, which I won't go into. In fact, the N5PA, I borrowed his slide.
Just
He has his own calendar.
I'll take care of it.
All right. Okay. Here is some of the details for a contest that I dabbled in, which is the CQ Worldwide DX Contest, CW. And not everybody does CW. They also had the equivalent of this in sideband, I think a few weeks before, but nevertheless, this looks pretty dry, but it tells you what modes are allowed. This time it was just CW, what bands are allowed, and what the classes are. And it's possible, you know, you can pick a particular category, and we've talked about QRP, and there's going to be fewer people in the QRP category, so your chances might be better there. And in fact, they have what they call these overlays, where you can identify yourself. If you turn in a log, you can identify yourself as a rookie or a youth, and you'll be competing. You'll see how you compete with other rookies, and you might be the #1 rookie or youth in the contest and win an award. So the top scores do win awards, and there's different power levels, including QRP. The exchange for this contest was a signal report, or RST, and a zone number. So you can work a station once per band, but you can work them on other bands and it will count. So there's a lot of details here, but what I found out is that if you make QSOs with your own country, the focus on this is DX, you get 0 points. So that's kind of weird. So anyway, there's a couple of thousand US stations on, and you're not going to get points working them. So you want to work DX stations around the world, and it goes on and on. So the rules would have been similar for sideband. And this just applies to CQ contests, but they've divided the world into, it looks like 40 zones. And in Dothan, Alabama, it's hard to tell, but I believe I'm in zone 4, but I think Panama City is in zone 5. Hard to tell from the map, but there's other aids to help you figure it out. But then the rest of the world and the islands and everything, they fall into one zone or another. So ideally, you want to work as many zones as possible and then as many countries in the zones. So the CQ Worldwide is kind of a advanced big time contest, but you can still dabble in it. And that's what I did yesterday, let's see, over the weekend. And in my dabbling, you see here on the left, I did keep a log. N1MM software has, you can tell it you're doing a specific contest, so it knows the rules. And anyway, the zones are here on the left, and it turns out that the zones you work are multipliers. So grabbing another zone can really push your score up. And it's kind of the same with countries. So DX is a lot of fun. And I did work Japan on 15 meters and actually Hawaii on 10 meters. So, I'm always going to get a kick out of working them. And these are all the prefixes of DX stations. Actually, there are more prefixes in this, but they group them into certain letters. Like for United States, it's all K, even though we have AK and W. And N get groups under K for the multiplier. Well, anyway, it turns out that you add the multipliers for the zone to the multipliers for the country, and multiply that times your points. And that's just this particular contest. That it's pretty involved. But anyway, my score was 12,000. Now, if you look up the top scores, you're going to see that 12,000 is pretty minuscule. but it was fun. And if you're looking to get 100 countries, it's conceivable some people have worked 100 different countries in one contest. So, all right. So tonight, the question is, why try contesting? And here's Greg's top 10. It's another facet of amateur radio to explore, and there's no shortage of things to explore in amateur radio. That's the good news. And you'll be surprised what your gear can do. If you just get on the air and try to make random contacts, well, there may not be that many people interested in contacting you. But when you get on a contest, the tables can turn, and you may be very popular depending where you are and so forth. And perhaps you got a HF radio. Well, you need lots of QSOs to justify you getting a radio, and a way to get QSOs or contacts is certainly a contest. We've already mentioned that you may want contacts for Workdoll States or DXCC. Everybody else is doing it. Well, that's what my daughter said. Build your operating skills and equipment skills if you want to get into it. If you're not a conversationalist, I'm not sure that's a word, but you don't need to be, because contesters, the seasoned contesters, just exchange the minimum information and then they move on quickly to the next contact, because they're interested in efficiency. And some people are just competitive by nature, And maybe if you have an unfilled competitive nature, unfulfilled, well, here's your chance. And so everything about contesting, whatever level you participate, will help you be prepared for an all else fails scenario. And most importantly, why try contesting? Try it if you like to have fun. After you get comfortable with it, it is a lot of fun. All right, well, you can get into or try contesting any way you like, but certainly the field days are a great opportunity, and almost all serious contesters somehow found their way to field day and they said, hey, I like this. And the cool thing about field day is people set up their equipment outdoors and you don't even have to bring your equipment, but you can get on the air and get a taste of it. And winter field days coming up in January. And so there's going to be a group of folks out at Pine Log State Forest at the campground, and we'll make sure everybody knows the details on that. And something that's a whole lot of fun are state QSO parties, and they any given weekend, it seems like there's one going on. Not every weekend, but seems like there's a lot of states. So, and in particular, Alabama is in September, and Florida is in April. And for you Florida folks, the rest of the country and the world wants to work you. So if you'll get on the air and call CQ, Alabama Q or Florida QSO party, you'll get some interest, and folks will just come work you, and you say, gee, everybody likes me. So, because they do. All right. Well, that's pretty much it. I didn't mention that contests cover all modes, even FT8, I'm sure has contests, and RTTY. Jim, do you have any comments about RTTY contesting?
Let me get on here. Yeah, I did a few of them. Right now, contests, last one I was in, I could only find about 20 people on RTTY. Once we all worked each other, that was pretty much it. It was a big letdown. But years and years ago, that was a very popular digital mode.
Right. Well, even now, you guys take up the whole band, at least the CW part.
Oh, wow. When they go to Rudy, they go everywhere.
And I don't have a recording of RTTY, but it has a particular sound to it. Yeah. So actually, a lot of people like it. It's fast paced, and it's kind of a predecessor to FT8, but it's much faster. Much faster than FT8. I haven't done it, but I hear it on the air and I can tune it in and decode it. So are there any other comments about contesting?
I got a question.
A question would be good, yes.
Well, maybe I've had the wrong impression because I've been listening now for a while about folks involved in these contests. Maybe each contest is different or have different rules, but I noticed on the one slide it said logging wasn't required, but I was thinking, like, if I hear somebody calling CQ and they're going for points, I won't talk to him because I was under the impression we both had to record the contact and both submit a list in for validation before he would get the points. And I've
Well-
also heard a couple of y'all saying, you know, you were waiting for somebody to turn something in or for ARRL or somebody to crunch the numbers and all that. So
Yeah,
I
well,
refrained from talking to people during
Well.
contests because I knew I wasn't keeping a log.
well, for all the contests, to my knowledge, don't require that everybody turn in a log. Now, we may have confused you about the radar stuff we were talking about. Yeah, which may be an exception, but you can get do the exchange and give people points, and those points will count.
But I
So,
was just
Yeah.
thinking that everybody had to maintain their own contact log and submit it, and then somebody else would
Yeah.
cross-reference those contacts for validation
well,
before the other guy got the points. And I didn't want to just
Yeah.
jam them up with superfluous contacts that weren't going to count.
well,
So,
well, it's good that we talk.
I think they, on the top guys, they always check their logs. They always cross-check those.
Yeah,
But on
Yeah.
yours and my log, nah, it don't count much.
yeah. And
Okay.
actually, so not everybody that participates is going to turn in a log, but they still get to claim the points. But they do some checking, you know, to make sure somebody didn't make up contacts. But
I wouldn't
But
worry
every-
about me so much. I didn't want to
Yeah.
mess the other guy up because I knew
Yeah.
he
well,
was probably doing it with a vengeance. Me, I run up on him by accident. So
well, the other guy wants a contact with you. Because it's
there
just
was
going
one
to,
in South Carolina. He was specifically calling DX, and he was, I think Japan was one of the countries he was looking for, and there was a couple others. I could hear him strong,
Yeah.
but I didn't say nothing to him because I knew he was trying to find some specific targets. So
well, we can talk about the state QSO parties. For example, Florida. It's like I said, everybody, well, Florida stations can work anybody, including other Florida stations. And in a QSO party, the counties are important and they are a multiplier. And the other states are a multiplier. So for Florida stations, they can work other Florida stations and everybody else. But people who are not in Florida can only work Florida stations.
Hmm.
So that's what makes us popular. And also, anybody in the contest is trying to get as many counties as they can. It turns out that not all counties are well represented in the contest. So there are some operators that get in their vehicle and they'll go to counties that aren't well represented, and they'll get on the air from the county for an hour or so, and then they'll go to another county. So they're roving for the contest. And, you know, some people find that a whole lot of fun to go amongst the counties, and then they become very popular when they get to that county. I did the Florida QSO party from Falling Water State Park. So I was not in Bay County. I was in Jackson County. And, you know, many people I worked said, "Oh, thank you for Jackson County," because they didn't have it until they worked me. So
Falling Waters was Washington County.
I don't think so. I
Yeah, you're
could be
probably
wrong,
right.
Jim.
I could be wrong. I just
I
thought
could be wrong.
because it's right there at Chipley.
It's Chipley. I think you could be right, Jim. I think Jackson County's further over. So, but in any case, I guess I've forgotten what county I was in. But I did turn in a log, and we'll see what comes of it. So the point of this is when you do hear a contest on the air, see if you can figure it out and give some folks some points and see if it's an activity you like to do. So that's the point for beginners and new and returning hams.
Yeah, if you go to W4RYZ page on QRZ, you can see the field day scores posted for the last few years.
Yep. And field day, since COVID, they aggregate the scores of people who are not operating necessarily with their club, but they add up the scores of people who would like, who identify their club in their submittal. So, yeah. So our club, you know, but not exclusively our club. Jim has a club. Could you tell folks a little bit about how this all can get out of hand? Can you tell them about Charlie, Jim?
Yeah, Charlie been a ham since he was a young kid in junior high, I guess. And he's just a couple of years younger than me, and I'm 77 now. So he's been around quite a while, and he has a lot of awards for contesting, and he's been on a lot of choice D expeditions. That's where hams get together and go somewhere where amateur radio station hasn't been used in maybe years, like that, like a remote island or something like that. And he's been on dozens of those. I think he might even be on one right now somewhere. I think he's going to. I think he's got two lined up in the future. You can just get on Google and type DX expeditions, and you can read all about the ones that they've had and the ones that are coming up, and you'll probably come across NF4A. That's Charlie, and he lives up in I guess it would be Western Lynn Haven. Is that what you would say? On the west side of 77.
Yeah. Yep. And there are actually clubs for DXers, and there's an Atlanta club and various clubs around the country if you really get into it. And there's even a contest university. And they actually have information and training and classes and materials to bring folks up to speed on contesting. And it's a big activity at Dayton, or Xenia, I guess now. But so anyway, contesting is just one of the many facets of amateur radio. So we thought we would highlight it tonight. And I want to thank everybody for their attentions. Any final comments?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that I have been trying to learn like the range of my antennas when I hear Parks on the Air contest and some other state contest. And I wrote down my notes when I was working 20 meters, and I was able to hit Toronto and Connecticut, but I could not hit Nebraska or West Virginia or Ohio or the Cayman Islands. Even though I could hear all of them perfectly clear, I can only talk to people in Toronto and Connecticut. So it's just interesting learning the ranges, and maybe it's the orientation of my antenna, the band, the frequency, the time of day, all of that. It's just getting to learn that. And it's interesting when I can hear someone so clear and they can't hear me at all, you know?
Yes. it is interesting. And so these things are a great teacher about how propagation works. It may take you a while to catch on to it. And one effect, particularly on the higher bands, is the skip zone.
Mhm.
And you may be on 20 meters, but find it very difficult to talk to people. Well, in at least the lower half of Alabama and
Right.
in Georgia,
Or
'cause
bots across town.
and people right across town. They're so hard to talk to. All right. Okay. Well, thanks everybody, and we're open for topics for the future. And we'll say 73 and stop recording.